Hey there YouTube, welcome back to a non-black powder video this week. Reason being of course that as I said last week, I'm basically waiting for some reinforcements to arrive, and thanks to two postal strikes they still haven't arrived yet. They should be well on their way. I think I got the it was either Monday or Tuesday. I think they were sent. I was kind of expecting them to be here by now, but I kind of forgot that there was postal strikes. So I guess that's holding it up. So I'm now kind of thinking that perhaps I won't be getting them until Monday or Tuesday of next week. What did I do? So basically, I've had 2 or 3 months ago, I watched a Victory at Sea battle report that had planes in it, and I just sort of and it was a solo game as well, and I actually really sort of fell in love with it because, as you know, I only basically play solo games, and it just struck a chord with me that's never really struck before, because obviously I've got a sort of an interest in World War II and especially naval stuff, but at that particular point I never really wanted to sort of game it. But I just watched that video and it completely changed my mind, and so I went hunting. I went hunting for Victory at Sea stuff, and I ended up picking up the starter set, which I picked up really cheap actually. I think it was like £40, something like that. So I was extremely happy with that. I then went hunting for some fleets. Now I knew that I was just going to do the Americans and the Japanese. I wasn't going to go into any other nations. Although I must admit I was kind of tempted by the French, and that I suppose that could possibly be a possibility for the far future. But I was quite happy with just the US and the Japanese for now. So I also managed to pick up extremely cheap Japanese and American starter fleets as well. So as obviously I had a week free from doing Napoleonics. Now I did think about doing my brigade commander for the 2nd Brigade. So I kind of got him out. I undercoated him. I stuck him to his horse. I stuck the horse to a base for painting. And then I changed my mind. I thought, no, I can't. I'm not going to do just a brigade commander on his own. There's just no point to it. I'll leave him until I finish the brigade. So I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I was looking around. I mean, obviously, I've got tons of stuff that I could theoretically do. But I decided in the end, I thought, you know what? I reckon that these Victory at Sea ships aren't going to be too difficult to do. Now originally I only thought I was actually going to perhaps finish 1 fleet in a week, but I actually ended up finishing the entire starter box, and also 3 wings or 3 flights of aircraft as well, which I ordered separately from Warlord, and they've got a little story of their own which I'll tell you about when I actually get to them. So let's give you a closer look at these ships that I spent the week painting. So let's start off with the Japanese. So let's go with the 2 heavy cruisers. Now, obviously, with the starter set, well, obviously you get an American and a Japanese side, but they're not. I'm not sure exactly if they're like balanced points. I haven't actually got that far to actually add up the points total, but there's definitely the American fleet is definitely very destroyer heavy, where the Japanese fleet seems to be more capital ship heavy. So I'm just trying to get the light sorted on these. Let's see if I can. No, probably do it, I'd say. So here we have. Now with the Japanese fleet, I basically painted it all at the same time. Although I haven't actually painted a Victory at Sea ship before, I have actually painted the scheme of a Japanese ship before. When I painted my Dystopian Wars, my old school Dystopian Wars fleets up, I painted them to resemble American and Japanese fleets. and therefore this was basically the colour scheme that I used on those. So it's basically buff for the deck and a light sea grey for the grey. Very easy to paint. It surprised me just how quickly these were to paint. Water wise, originally I was going to go for an electric blue, but I watched a video by a guy called, I can't remember his name, just give me 2 seconds. I should have had this ready. Let's go. Jix, or Jics, his channel. He's actually got a few videos on Victory at Sea stuff. Not all of them were 100% relevant to me. I did watch though his Japanese fleet. Strangely enough, he more or less used the same colours. I think he used a different grey. But something that I did really like about the way that he painted his ships was the colour that he chose to do as water. Which is basically, I think it's a light turquoise. Now, if I were to have to go out and buy a light turquoise, I probably wouldn't have bothered. But I knew that I probably had a good chance of actually having that colour, because there was a time when I actually specifically went looking for a turquoise colour, and I picked up 3 different types of turquoise, 2 Vallejo and 1 I think was... I think that was actually a game colour, so 2 model colour and 1 game colour, different types of turquoise, and light turquoise was one of the colours that I picked up. So I just tried it, and I really liked it actually. So that's what I used. I used the light turquoise as the base. It does actually really match the sort of Pacific playing mats. As far as colour goes. Now I did have to differ slightly from his the way he did things, because he used sort of a coloured water effect to paint over at one point, and I haven't actually got that particular type of watercolour or water effect colour. So I basically sort of skipped that part and just used regular clear water. But something that I did take from his videos and actually brought in, which I'm really glad I did, was some of this water texture foam effect, which is absolutely amazing on the foaming of the waves for these ships, and that's basically, you can basically paint it straight on, and it comes out like that. And so I was really happy with how the water effect came out. Very simple, literally just the turquoise. Then I gave it a blue ink or Vallejo blue wash over the whole sort of top of the base. Then I painted in the foam, and then I just gave it like a brush over with water effect, and that was that. And then I obviously just matte varnished the ship and the side of the base to sort of just add a little bit of protection for picking them up, etc. So that is the first ship that I did, and which is a I think it's a Megami class. It is a Megami class. It's a Megami class. I think it's a heavy cruiser. It counts as rather than a light cruiser. So that was one of the sort of capital ships that you got in the Japanese fleet. I'll put them off to the side as I look at them. The second Japanese ship is basically the same model. This is wait a second. Wrong ship. Here we go. This was the second sort of heavy cruiser. This is the Kamano, but it's actually the same class of ship as the Mogami, and this is actually a later date version ship. This is a 1944 class ship, and something that I did notice was that obviously as the years went on, they made additions to the ships, and one of the additions that you can see is the extra anti-aircraft guns on the stern of the Mogami class. So that's the two sort of heavy cruisers that you get in the Japanese fleet. You also get a light cruiser, which is the Furitaka. And I think that's a Furitaka class, is it? It is. This, I believe, is a light cruiser. It's a lot smaller and lighter armed than the heavy cruisers. And obviously this is another older ship. And again, obviously the Japanese fleet is very basic to paint. And of course they always have the black stripe around the top of the funnel. Again, I was really happy with how this turned out. Like I say, I painted them all at the same time, so it was, you know, it was all pretty easy going. And then finally we have 3 destroyers for the Japanese. Now I'm not going to bother showing you all of them, but these are Fubuki class destroyers. And again, obviously, although being a lot smaller, they are still just as easy to paint. You just need a bit of a steady hand when you're painting the side of the hull and when you're doing the water effect, not to get too much on the actual side of the ship. Although it doesn't look like I've missed a bit there, but it's not the end of the world. It could just be a bit of water splashing up the side. So that is the Fubuki class, and obviously I'm not going to bother showing you all 3 of them. But yeah, very happy with how they turned out, and of course, again, the water effects. Now, something that I did notice with all of these ships, actually, apart from one type, was that these guys are all made out of resin, and not Warlord, that Warlord plasticky resin, which kind of surprised me. And strangely enough, I had absolutely no bent bases or twisted ships or anything like that. I think the only sort of damage that I had was like a snapped off funnel on one of the Fletcher class American destroyers, and they are the ones that are actually made out of the Warlord resin. They're the only ship in the box. But again, you know, easy to repair. No worries whatsoever. And again, even those were all pretty flush. I mean, they may not be like all 100%, but they're all good enough to not have to do any work on, which is a bit of a relief, because I have heard some real horror stories about how some people's ships have turned up in their boxes before. So that is the Japanese fleet. They were really quick to do. I think they literally took me maybe 5 hours in total, including varnishing. They were really quick, and that's probably dawdling as well. I wasn't particularly rushing. So that is the Japanese fleet done. So this was probably about Tuesday at this point. I thought, well, you know, finish those guys. I've still got a lot of the week to go. What am I going to do now? I'm going to do the Americans. So I started doing the Americans. Now, again, I searched the internet to sort of try and get some techniques. A lot of the time, with the techniques that I come up with myself, I tend to sort of find someone else's technique that's quite complicated, and I'll come up with my own version of that technique, which is a lot simpler, but has a very similar sort of effect. Now, I couldn't find any videos on how to do Fletcher class destroyers. They're actually quite sort of dazzle camouflage heavy, you could say. So I thought, well, okay, there's no help for these boys. Even that guy that I mentioned earlier, the Jix, he only had one American video for the American fleet. So I was just sitting there thinking, well, what am I going to do? Like, you know, look up some pictures, you know, search the internet, etc. And then I just happened to look up at my little model pile, and I found this, which I kind of forgot that I had. So this is a 1/700th scale waterline Fletcher class destroyer, and of course it has the colour scheme on it, and if I were to flip the box over, it gives you the colour scheme. So that is what I based them off. And if I just pick one up, so these are the ones, like I say, that were made out of the Warlord resin. You can tell because it's kind of got like a rough, rubbery texture. But you can see that the style of painting came out perfect. It's got the dark blue deck, It's got the dazzle camouflage, and it's got the sort of the third colour on the superstructure. So I was really happy with how these turned out. And again, obviously the same water technique and foam effect. So that was these guys were. I can't say they certainly weren't quick. They took me a good 2 or 3 hours to do. Just these 6 alone. Obviously, it's partly to do with the fact that there's 6 of them. But these were very labour intensive for their size. But I was very happy with them in the end. So that is also the main difference between the American and the Japanese fleets. The Americans have 6 of these, as opposed to the Japanese that just have 3 destroyers. So that is all. That is the Fletcher class. I'm not going to bother showing you all them all because they're all more or less basically the same. So let's get those out of the way. So the next ship that I started on was the Chicago. Now this particular ship, which is a Northampton class cruiser, its colour scheme is very similar to, or at least it looked very similar to a sort of Japanese ship, basically. So that's more or less what I did. I basically just painted this up as a Japanese ship, apart from the fact that they don't have the thick line across the funnel. They only have like the very top of it lined black, and obviously it's got radar, this particular ship, and it's 1942, timed. And yeah, it was, I think this was the easiest ship out of all the American fleet to paint up, because it's basically just the same as the Japanese, really. Sea grey, light sea grey, and or medium sea grey actually, and buff. So that was the American Northampton class cruiser. Next up, I did the what I thought was the second most complicated ship, colour-wise, and that was the Northampton. This is also a Northampton class cruiser, and for this particular one, this is one of the only American ship I think that that Jix guy does. Excuse me. And I didn't follow his schemes exactly. I kind of went off on my own a little bit. So I suppose you could say that the only real similarity is the water, the style of the water. I basically I made the sort of slightly darker grey blue up myself by using now what's the colour called? Hold on 2 seconds. I think it's green blue. Is that it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Grey blue, I think it is actually. This colour. Yeah, grey blue. And then I mixed it with the colour that I used for the deck of my Fletchers, which is this contrast colour called Leviathan blue. And if you mix them together, they come up with this sort of dark, slightly darker version of that grey blue, basically. So I gave it a grey deck, a dark sea grey deck, and then using this mixed up colour for the rest of the superstructures and stuff. And yeah, I was pretty chuffed with how this turned out in the end. So that is the second Northampton class cruiser. Finally, perhaps the most difficult of all the American ships is the Indianapolis. This is a Portland class cruiser, and as you can see, it's got a quite a complicated sort of dazzle scheme. It's got 2 or 3 different types of blue. It's got black. And there's specific things that are painted specific colours, which were quite difficult to try and sort of replicate. but I think in the end it turned out okay, and I'm certainly pretty happy with it. So that's probably, I think the Fletcher class destroyers took longer because there's more of them, but this guy took quite a time in comparison to the other two cruisers that came in the American fleet. So I think when I finished these, it was more or less sort of Thursday or well into my Thursday painting session, so I basically, I still had a fair few days left of the week. Like I say, I finished them with plenty of, maybe an hour or two into my session, and I thought, okay, I've run out of stuff. What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to go for. I did actually order in some blisters of aircraft from Warlord. You do get a flight of zeros in the starter set, but I thought, well, I'm going to definitely need some more zeros, so I'm going to order a blister of those. I also ordered some Vals, which are dive bombers. They're off to the side here. They're actually are not painted yet. And then obviously for the Americans, I ordered the Dauntless dive bombers and F6F Hellcats. And I think you get F4Fs in the starter set, which are obviously an earlier fighter. Now I decided to paint these up. Now there's an interesting story here. Now when I originally ordered these, what I got when they actually arrived from Warlord, they sort of slightly messed my order up. Now let me show you. So basically what they sent me was, instead of Victory at Sea, they sent me the equivalent aircraft, but from Blood Red Skies. So they sent me a Dauntless and Devastator Squadron, a Val and Karte Squadron, and also a F6F Hellcat Squadron for Blood Red Skies, and also a Zero flight for Blood Red Skies. So they sent me the right aircraft, but for the wrong system. Now, I was, I thought, well, okay, I'll get hold of customer services, see what they say, if I have to send these guys back, then fair enough. So I basically got hold of Warlord customer services. It took about a week to sort of answer back, probably because they were busy. But they basically said, right, we'll send you the right stuff, and you don't have to bother sending back the stuff that we sent you. So with that in hand, it's like, well, okay, so what am I going to do with all these Blood Red Skies planes? Because obviously I don't have the starter set. So I thought, well, I kind of want to get into Blood Red Skies, and if I were to, I probably would have ended up buying those anyway at some point. So I might as well just get Blood Red Skies for Christmas. So that's what I ended up doing. So come Christmas, I'll actually have the Pacific starter set for that. So with that sort of weird story out of the way now, we can actually get into the three flights of aircraft that I painted up. Now again, I'm not going to show you all of them because they're all more or less the same. But I basically painted up a flight of Zeros, which I think came out really cool. I'll just show you one. Obviously you get this, like, it's not quite a turntable, but you can kind of lift it and move it around to make it the aircraft differently armed. But I'm pretty sure that Zeros can only really be fighters. I think maybe a later version could carry a bomb, a single bomb, but generally they carried an extra fuel tank on that hard point. So I'm not sure if these can become anything else but fighters, but I'm sure that's covered in the rules. So I did a flight of Zeros. These are really quick to paint up. Maybe a little slow when it comes to sort of detailing them and stuff, but they're basically just, I think I used a medium blue for the stand, and then ivory for the aircraft, and then obviously their black noses and periscope for the cockpit, and little red dots for the sun emblems. And then a little stripe for squadron insignia. So these particular ones are the Red Squadron, with the red stripe on the back of the fuselage near the tail. And then obviously there's different colours for the different wings. So it's basically 4 of those. Then this was now Friday, and I thought, well, you know, I might as well just do a wing of a pack of American aircraft. So I thought, okay, I'll get my Hellcats out. So I basically started my Hellcats. These can only really be fighters, so they don't have the little spinny bit. But yeah, I think these came out really cool. I mean, they're quite difficult to sort of try and get a proper sort of colours on, because they have these sort of, you know, they just have the American roundel on the wing, and then the American roundel on the side of the fuselage, and then they normally have a number. There's no way you could ever get a number on there, and these sort of differ in quality. I mean, I suppose I could go back and repaint them, but some of them are okay, some of them aren't. Most of the time, most of them are. But you can see sort of the basic shape of a roundel, and then they have the basic, again, shape of a roundel on the side behind the cockpit. Now for these I used an electric blue for the cockpits because the periscope colour was a little bit too dark. So that was the wing of, or the flight of Hellcats. And finally I was still sort of quite early on the painting session in front, about maybe halfway through what I normally paint. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna, these guys are gonna be finished quite quickly. I think I'll do another flight. So I picked up the Dauntless, and these are the slightly lighter colour, the grey blue. And again, they have the approximation of roundels. And again, I went with the electric blue for the cockpit because although periscope probably would have shown up, I sort of decided to keep them uniform with the other aircraft. And then I put these little symbols on the back just to denote like squadrons. So, like for instance, this is yellow squadron of bombers with the triangle, and then the fighters have the same array of colours but in squares. So this is the red wing of Hellcats, and that's just something for me, not necessarily for the game. So that is the 4 wings of or a flight of Dauntless, probably a squadron actually. So yeah, so that's what I ended up doing for this week. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was certainly different. I did quite enjoy painting those ships up, and obviously I've got loads more to do with the having the starter fleets as well. And I'm kind of hoping that I might sort of start off with a few sort of basic games, building up to using the whole starter box, and then sort of start building up on that, and to the point where I want to play a sort of a massive battle with both of the starter fleets, the starter box fleets, and all the aircraft, and that should be a glorious battle. So anyway, like I say, that's the end. Hope you enjoyed it. Something a little bit different for a change, I suppose. Now there is a slight chance of the video perhaps not quite being ready for the weekend next week, depending on how late my reinforcements come and how quickly I can sort of get them prepped to be ready for painting. So there's either going to be a late video next week, or I might have another bye-week where I sort of start them a bit later in the week and sort of finish them early into the week after, and then sort of do the video at the end of the week to get back into that sort of schedule. Which is really handy, because if a particular battalion is sort of going slow, it's given me those extra 2 days or sometimes 3 days of a week to actually to utilise if I need them, of which of course most of the time I don't. But yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be back on schedule for the Black Powder updates next week. But if they're not, then there'll be another sort of perhaps mystery video, which I'll use as fill-in. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Big thank you again to some sneaky stealth subscribers that decided, another 4 stealth subscribers as I call them, because there's no notifications, they just appear. And yeah, again, big thank you to everyone else who gives up their precious time to watch my drivel. So, until next time, catch you all later. Bye bye.